Ooh, today's a good one. Today's a really good one. We're pretty excited. We're going to have Des on. I hope that you ask questions. If not, you can use a little question mark thing to get your questions in. But hey, Adrian, it's good to see you out there. This is going to be exciting. I mean, you should know why. It's Des. I mean, she's everything right now. And hi, Mel, how you doing? We'll have her on here in a second. I'm sure she's joining in. Hey, from Austin. It's always nice to have the Texas in the house. Hey, Adrian. I'm glad you snuck in. If you can't learn something from Des, then there's nothing left to your running. You got to have everything. Yes, Jared, this is very cool. Very excited to see Des today and learn about what she's got going on. Make sure you guys ask questions because we're going to, if you know the format of the show, we talk a little bit, we go over some stuff, and then towards the end, we pop on the questions from you guys and give Des a chance to answer them. It's not my favorite part of the show because I love dominating and asking all the questions I want to know. But it is a great part for you guys to be able to get your question for Des. So, of course, yeah, she's known for some of the food and alcohol. Hey, Jared, nice to see you out there. Glad you're here. Allie's here too. Great. Hey, Robin, my mom-in-law, she's the best. If you don't know, she's Meg's mom, and that makes her the best. So it's nice to know that she's supporting us and out there watching. So we're just waiting on Des. I hope that she knows it's 4 p.m. our time, not 4 p.m. her time that we're going on. But I think she does. She's been sharing the stories. She's been doing the stuff. Knowing Des, there she is. She's probably, getting ready, excited to meet me, and it just took her time to get in front of her phone. You know how it is.
I was going to make you stress, man. Sorry.
Hey, Des.
How's it going?
It's going really great. I'm very excited to have you here on our channel and talk some running with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So off the bat, what's going on around your hood with everything, and what are your day-to-days looking like right now?
Yeah, it's been pretty normal, sadly. Like, I'm usually buried away at home just training, and we're on some quiet dirt roads, and a lot of that looks really similar. I also don't get out much, so Ryan's doing the grocery store runs and things like that, and he'll be like, it's a little weird or whatever. But life's pretty normal for me, except less travel, so that's super nice because not a big fan of traveling to begin with, but anytime I don't have to hop on a plane and head out somewhere, it's kind of like, okay. So this is, it's been okay for us.
So right now, is there anything on the calendar even for next year, or are you just seeing how things go and how things roll out?
Yeah, just playing it day by day kind of, and set up a time trial. We'll see if it happens. It's kind of out there tentatively, and that was kind of the big game plan. My planter's been killing me the last couple of days, so it's too early to pull the plug, but it's an irritation. So it's kind of the balance of like, I want to get something done and be able to be productive right now, but also I'm not super interested in getting injured for a time trial. So, so playing it safe at this point, but still trying to do some work and, move forward and progress.
That's got to be interesting because normally, obviously, you've got between stuff that you have to do for running, training, races, and then probably press stuff and that kind of things, and obligations to Brooks and sponsors. So this probably is a little nice to have like almost like a break.
Yeah. This is like bonus time. I'm like, dude, I don't have to go anywhere right now. Are you kidding me? And it's like typically life functions in, spring marathon, you have 3 months and you just tell everyone no, like I'm training. Like as soon as the marathon's over, then like we'll do all of it, and then you hustle and catch up on stuff, and then when you start getting into the time frame of the fall marathon, you're like, okay, this is it, we shut it down. And after October, November, wherever that fall marathon is, then you go from there to the end of the year and you're back on the road, just promoting and doing all that stuff. So now it's kind of like, had the spring block, did that, put some time in, and instead of putting running on the back burner a little bit and being like, how can I fit this in around the other stuff? It's just been like this big gift of bonus time where I'm like, oh, I don't have to squeeze it in and cram. Like, I can make this the focus. And so I'm trying to take advantage of that and work on stuff that I don't usually get to work on right now. And, it's instead of just being consistent and getting mileage in when you're on the road, it's like, okay, let's do really good quality workouts and let's try to get a little bit faster, trying to get on the track, even though it's really tough for me. But like, maybe I can do something in the 10K, we'll see. So we're playing around with a lot of that right now, which has been really fun, just because typically it's like always like you're kind of wasting running time right now, really.
Well, that's a question. Like, as a pro, obviously there's some pressure to get out there and race and get into as many races as you can while you're at your peak. Is there do you feel like a loss of time, or does this feel like you're missing out on any opportunities because of the downtime?
It's creeping into that. I mean, with Boston being postponed, you go, okay, well, there's one. And then you're kind of holding your breath for the fall. Like, this could have, I only have so many years left. But, I got to do the trials, which was great. And we're still kind of holding on for the fall marathons, and maybe those will still happen. So it hasn't been crushing just yet. But, if you go spring, fall, and then say next year spring starts looking bleak, that gets tough. But the flip side is I've had a pretty good career where I've gotten to do so many different great things. And so like all of the stuff's kind of gravy right now, so there's that.
Yeah. I mean, to a certain degree, when I look at your career and stuff, like, I'm like, wow, like how do you stay motivated when you've achieved like some of the greatest things? Like, my favorite Des moment of all time. I mean, I enjoyed Boston, don't get me wrong. That was awesome. But 2016 Olympic trials, and it was in LA, and I don't know if you remember Terminator 2, and that was in LA. I felt like that was you in that race. Like, you were just like steady, and it was just like, you just watched, like, the camera's on the front and we're watching that unfold. And then you just keep panning back to Des Linden, and she's just steady, like dead eyes, just going. And like, that was probably, for me, one of the most impressive marathon performances, male, female, anything. Just, I thought that was amazing.
That's cool. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, there's been races like that where people maybe don't appreciate like discipline so much, and it's like, we know what the conditions are, and you can go be brave and you can go be tough, but people don't necessarily think of being really disciplined and not going when you feel like, this feels so easy, because it's actually going to like take a toll in the end. And that's like mental toughness. And I think, people don't necessarily think of that as a toughness trait, but when you kind of tune out things that are going on around you, and are still able to just dial into your plan because it's the best thing for you, and execute that and have it kind of come together the way it should. It's super gratifying, because for most of that race, for like 24 miles, people are like, what are you doing? Like, why did you just let them go? Are you even trying to race? And you're like, well, we had to take a few things into consideration here. It's hot, it's humid. It's like a noon start, and the sun's only going to go straight up above us. And, so there's a lot of things that, you forget to look at the time. And then afterwards you go, oh, she was onto something.
Yeah. Well, I think that taught a lesson as an amateur athlete, just someone who likes to go out and race and stuff like that. What I took from that was the patience and trusting your training. But like, you see it even in the pro level, that ability to control yourself in the moment and not get psyched out by competitors and to push is a strength. And it was funny, I was talking to Adrian, who's kind of like my sports psychologist, even though, I don't have the pressures that you have.
Sure.
You like freak out about stuff. And, she helped settle me down. And we were both talking, and she was like, Des has the strongest mental game that she's ever seen. and this is a professional psych doctor. So, you know, what goes into that? Is that not like everybody trains, everybody goes out and they run the miles, they do the workouts. Do you do something specific to get your head right?
I think it's been a lot of work over the years, and it is like train your body. Like we're talking about nutrition, you train your gut, but there is a part where you have to actually work on that mindset and figure out how to get yourself in the right headspace. And I studied psychology in school, and it's like the science of common sense, really. It's just like when you're in the classes, you're like, well, of course, like this is common sense. But when you start like parsing it down and really looking into it, you're like, okay, there's ways to get there. So I'm intrigued by that. And I don't necessarily have like the game plans that I can write out, but I'm doing like some stuff that helps. And I'm always fascinated by that. So it's like reading the books and the things that can kind of give you the tools. I couldn't like tell you what they are because it seems like common sense. You're like, well, yeah. Of course. But I work with Jared Ward. We do a coach at Endure Strong. And we had this, my friend's a sports psychologist, and we had her on, we were talking about patience and like what that means and how it's a mental strength tool. And so like when you have those discussions, you're like, okay, yeah, I am doing the thing where I have like process thoughts and purpose thoughts and possibility thoughts. They just like lay it all out for you in a more sophisticated way.
Are you able to recognize your negative thoughts and push them down, or change your what you're thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can go back afterwards and analyze a race pretty logically and without like an emotional attachment and be like, these are the things I should have done different. Like I know when I kind of gave up on myself or when I had a negative mindset versus a positive. And every time after a race, you know, you use those as learning opportunities. I've only won one marathon, so there's been a ton of room for growth and learning. And even in that one, it was like the first half of it was all of a disaster anyhow. So yeah, I think I'm always kind of figuring that out as we go.
I mean, that's a pretty good transition right there, since you went from the extreme heat, upper 70s, LA, like grueling race.
Yeah.
Fast forward to, I think everybody else's, it might be most people's favorite Des race. It might be their second favorite, but the Boston Marathon, that one, you're in rain, cold. So, I mean, this plays into the mental toughness. This plays into a lot of different factors. But that race, obviously, I mean, the whole first half, like I was like, oh, she's just there to run Boston. She's not there to win. She's running with Shalane. She's stopping at the bathroom with Shalane. And, you know, they're doing all that stuff, right. Which was actually one of the most beautiful things to see, just the support of another runner. Like that's a huge part of the sport. That it's not a solo sport. And, you know, walk us through, like, what was your mental part going into the Boston? And were you thinking, this is my day?
No, to be honest, like to be totally honest, in 2017, I'm like, yeah, 100%. Like I'm so fit right now. I know how to run this race. This is my year, so on and so forth. And just got like dusted the last 8-10 miles of that race, and kind of hit reset from there. I was like, I don't know what else different I can do, but I need to take a step back from this and like stop forcing things. So I went into 18.
Is that when you changed coaching?
No, it was after.
Okay.
But I took a long break after that and was like, just hit a pause on running in general. And it was kind of like, okay, I'm going to rebuild. I got to the start line feeling like, okay, I'm pretty similar shape to 2017. And I thought I had a chance to win, but I wasn't even close. So, you know, like this is kind of a rebuilding, and maybe this will be the jump off point for some progression moving forward. So it felt like a really big rebuilding kind of reboot year. The fitness was really good. I just hadn't gotten any better from the year prior, and the year prior I got my butt kicked. So my expectations weren't like, I'm going to knock it out of the park this year doing the exact same stuff. It was like, well, let's see where we're at and try to grow from here. So that was kind of the mindset going in.
Yeah. And it turned out to work out for you, but that's like a perfect example of show up, do the best you can that day. But at the halfway, if I was a betting man and put any money down, I would have said, "There's no way she's done with the race. Shalane's done. Everybody's out." And then just we're cheering on. We actually watched that one on television from the couch, and it was just fun. Like I think she's gonna do it.
Yeah.
I kept waiting for you to take your jacket off.
Yeah, no, there was a point where I was like, I hope I don't get DQ'd for like not having the proper bib and like wearing this jacket. And I tried to do it, like I tried to unzip it and my hands were so cold. I was just like, I can't get the jacket off. I'm just going to wear it. And it was fine. They didn't DQ me.
That obviously. I think everybody, like your face is your ID. But
right.
when we talk about, I just mentioned two of my favorite spectating Des races. What is your favorite race that you've run?
That's a good question. I mean, I really loved 2011 Boston, all but for the last few seconds, just because it was such a breakthrough race for me. But I felt like I was ready to do that and have a good performance and compete with the best, really in the world. And it's all good when you're looking at the paper and you're like, I think it's there. I think it's there. And you talk about it and everyone's like, nah, you're full of crap. And then you go and execute and it's like, I was totally justified. Like, it's okay to believe in yourself to this degree and it's warranted. And like, now you've proved yourself. And so it was a great moment, to have the result, but also to kind of justify the self-belief and be like, okay, I actually have a future in this sport. And it was just fun racing too. You get to those last few miles and it's like, how bad do you want it? And is your body going to physically cooperate? And can you get the mind and the body on the same level and time it all out just right? Wish it went a little bit different, but it was a fun race.
It's kind of funny because my fastest marathon isn't my favorite marathon.
Yeah.
It was a good marathon, but like there's other reasons that you can have. And like I can identify with what you're saying, that you showed up that day and it changed your mind about your running. And it also reinforced some of the things that you were thinking. Going into that, did you come out a different person, do you think, like as far as your running career, like the confidence was there now?
Yeah. And it's like the blessing and the curse, because you're like, oh, dude, I'm just going to get better. Like, I'm going to freaking shred this event. Like, how many Bostons can I win? Because I'm only 2 seconds away, and I know there's room for improvement and growth. But on the flip side of that is like, you just want to go and attack everything. And came off that, ran a PR in Boston, ran a PR in the 5K, ran a PR in the 10K, just on fire. And then when you're trying for that breakthrough, it's a fine line between breakthrough and breakdown. And that's where I got the biggest injury of my career. So it was like up, down, which was tough.
When you're on the cruise up, is the dynamic change between you and the other professionals in the sport? Like, do you see that, like, because these people, like you obviously know Shalane well enough to help her during Boston. Mm-hmm. Does the dynamic change as you reach a certain level in the sport, that either there's people want to help you to do better, or there's like the competition starts in and there's another dynamic that's, you feel like there's people that don't quite want to see you succeed the way you are?
Yeah. I think I'm so far out of that like core group of like really good, have always been good, talented, like, people who were recruited right out of college, that signed the big contracts and stuff and had agents. And like, I have always been so far outside that world that, it was like people reached out and congratulated me. And then I just felt like a fan of all of that. It was like, okay, like I never felt like I was suddenly in that group and wondering what they were talking about or getting a chance to like mingle with them. It was just like, okay, those things are reserved for those people. It's just how I always felt really separated from that. I'm not sure why. Probably because I
feel part of it now.
No, I mean, it's not really. I guess I know like that older group of people a lot better, and I just feel like I've always been such a fan that it's weird to feel like part of it. And that's just a me thing, because I'm still like such a big running fan like I'll have conversations and like try not to geek out, you know, like, I still learn from these guys and still be really excited and I'll like recount their races. And yeah, like that always comes up first for me.
That's awesome. So you're kind of like me, except for I'll never win Boston.
You never know. You never know.
I kind of know. But so speaking of fans and geeking out, so who are the marathoners that you look up to or that inspired you when you were like, when you met them, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm getting a chance to meet.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was always Dina. Dina? She was like, everyone watched her run into that stadium and like, tears, and just such a cool moment. And she inspired a nation and a generation and continues to inspire young runners. But to watch that moment, as a young runner and be like, wow, like she just did something so incredible. And then, to go sub 220 to win Chicago and London, like just so many amazing performances. And then you meet her and she's just like so normal and nice and like real. And you're like, oh my gosh, she's got it all. Like, this is crazy. So that awesome. that was probably like the greatest, like meeting, your hero and having them be someone you're like, okay, this is worth looking up to. Because sometimes you don't want to meet your heroes. You're like, ooh, that was a mistake.
Yeah. Have you gotten a chance to run with her at all or to do any like workouts or anything with her?
Yeah, I was on a half marathon team with her in Italy. So that was like my second world team she was trying to run for the medals and I was trying to not finish last. But it was cool. Like I just, got to learn so much just by being around her and super gracious and like kind with all of her wisdom and advice. And then since then we've actually become, decent friends, and I've stayed with Mammoth a little bit and, have dinner with the casters and cool. So it's been cool, but it's always still like, there's so much to learn and you don't want to be like the nerd who makes it awkward.
Yeah. Well, your spouse obviously brings coffee to the table, but when I saw Spirit of the Marathon, I found out Dina Castor's husband was a masseuse basically. And I was like, that seems like the perfect spouse for a runner. Just somebody you come back, finish your run, lays you out on the table, stretches you, something like that. I don't know.
I was wondering where that was going to go. Like, is it a bourbon guy? Is it a wine guy? Oh, the masseuse. Andrew's got it all, of course.
Yeah. I mean, hell, if you could have a shot of bourbon with it and get the massage, that'd be heaven,
exactly.
Right? Yeah. Hey, can we switch over gears and talk about shoes a little bit?
Let's do it.
All right. I'm going to grab this is the shoe that we got to try from Brooks. Besides this and the Tempo. And I actually like the Tempo better. Thought it was a nicer shoe. And when we reviewed this, I was like, dang, this is really firm. I said, Dina must I'm sorry. No, you got me thinking of Dina Castor. Desi must really love a firm shoe if this is it. And then Olympic trials come around. Yeah. And I see that you have the second version of this, which has the hypercritical foam. Supercritical, I forget. The DNA Flash foam midsole with that. So I'm guessing you prefer something a little bit softer than maybe this, and that maybe the Elite 2 is bringing that?
Yeah, I think that I like both shoes. And, Shaddy and I got that first prototype of the Hyperion Elite 1 like 4 days before the Boston Marathon. And it was really just kind of came to concept. I think Dathan had started working on it earlier, and he raced it New York City half that year in it, and just kind of started the development. And so then there was him, myself, Shaddy, Brendan, Gregg, a couple of the Hanson's people, and you're balancing kind of all of these different, like, I like to race in a shoe like this, but we know that the 4% or whatever it feels like that. And so there's a lot of different things that we rolled through. In the Hyperion Elite 1 was kind of the sweet spot from putting a bunch of different opinions together and coming out with that one. And while they were working on that shoe, we were like, dude, we need a training shoe. I can't do everything in this. And it felt like a traditional flat where it was really stiff and it came off the ground quickly, but not very forgiving, like definitely a stiff shoe. And so that's kind of where the tempo was born. And we got the tempo, and I was like, I love the tempo. This shoe is amazing. Like, just put this, smash these together, and that's the sweet spot. And so that was the moment where I was like, I think I could see myself going in that direction. In the new 2, we'll have an experience a little bit more like that. So they're really different, and I think they both perform very well as a carbon plated shoe. But there's like kind of a preference. Like, do you like really stiff, rigid flats that just make you feel like, you know, you're popping off the ground like rapidly, or do you like that bouncy, a little bit softer sensation? And so there's kind of 2 options there now, but they're both great shoes.
Yeah, my thought process was on this, that, you know, when you're running at a 5-minute pace, your foot is coming off the ground a lot faster than someone running at 7:30 or something like that. For me, this shoe was a little unforgiving at 7:30s, whereas I was thinking it does feel more like a traditional flat, where it doesn't have that get, like when you step in, you talked about the vapor flight, when you step into that, it bounces up, the energy return is there. This, even though the stack height is higher, feels a lot like a traditional flat. So that's interesting that you'd say that. And I do, the cushioning in this, I do love. I'm curious to see what it's like with a plate applied to it. So are you saying that this is pretty much the shoe that you ran Boston and won Boston in?
Yep.
And it was this durometer or firmness and everything like that?
There was a lot of changes to where we got to, but you know, that was kind of the starting point for where we ended up with that shoe.
Was yours tuned specifically for you, or was it the same for you, Dathan?
Yeah, I think it was kind of modeled off the one that Dathan had given a lot of feedback for. And then Shadi and I, like, we got, 4 days before the race, so not a lot of tuning there. It was just like, good luck.
So what was the other shoe you were going to decide between these two? Like, if this didn't work out for you, if you got it 2 days before the race, did you have a shoe ready to go?
Just the regular Hyperion, which was out.
Okay.
So I brought both of them to the start, and I was like, I have no idea what we're going to do here. And the wear test, or the shoe guys, the shoe developers were out in Boston, and they weren't sure which ones I was going to wear. So it was like a mystery. Like, when I stood on the start line, they were like, oh my God, she's going for it. And then it was like,
awesome.
Oh my God, she's like, are these going to hold up or not? And it's very stressful. Awesome. We all made it through.
Cool. So I'll be looking forward to seeing the Hyperion Elite 2 with this. I think it's called super critical foam, but it's just the way that they make it. I'm nerding out a little bit, but yeah, that's cool. And I guess that does it for my Brooks racing shoe questions.
Yeah.
You covered it pretty well. Did you feel like running in the Olympic trials in the new one was a better experience than the previous Elite for you?
That's a good question. I mean, I was super excited when I first got them, and like the first experience running with them, I was like, these are amazing. So yeah, I mean, I think the course in Atlanta was just so absurd, it's like, you're not going to run anything like that ever again. But they held up great, and I felt like they were, they performed super well. I was happy with that. I don't know like how they would compare. Maybe a different shoe would have felt faster. I'm not sure. It's kind of ifs and buts. I'm not sure. But I love the way it performed.
You would have had to make a choice because you were going to run Boston. Mm-hmm. You would have had to make a choice in, what was that, 6 weeks in between there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you think you would have gone with them?
Probably. I think I probably would have gone with the 2. But the other question is like, and they've since then I've done a bunch of stuff, and they seem to be like just still respond really well. Like, are they going to get like deadened out, flattened out? And they haven't kind of broken down in that way. So yeah, I probably would have gone with the 2 in Boston. Okay. Fair question.
All right. Well, let's take some questions from the audience here. Mm-hmm. I have a feeling we're going to get. I saved all the bourbon and stuff because I know people love that and love asking you those questions. But I'm going to give you one from our buddy Jared. It says, do you experience pre-race jitters, and if so, how do you deal with them?
Yeah, I'm definitely, I think everyone who actually cares about a race kind of gets a little bit nervous, and generally like the more fit I am, the more nervous I am, because you're like, I don't want to waste this opportunity. Like I have a chance to do something really special. And so it's, you know, recognizing why it's important. And then I go back and look at all my training, which reminds me that, yeah, I'm prepared. Like I have this potential opportunity because I've done all this work. And so there's a reason I'm excited and ready to go. And then I always write out a race plan, because that kind of helps me go through scenarios and be like, well, how will I respond if this happens? Or what am I going to do here? And so it makes it a more like logical approach and less emotional. And like, okay, I have a plan for all these different things. I know what I'm going to do. And then it takes that bargaining out when you get in the race, and you know you have like, I need to go through my checklist and knock off all these things today. So instead of asking how do I feel or what should I do, you know, it's just like, this is the next thing I'm supposed to do, and then you go down your list. So having like an actual physical plan just makes it a lot easier.
That is a perfect segue into this question. I think you just kind of answered it, but I'm going to put it up there. This is from Adrian. It's obvious you have a mental game. It's very strong. Are there certain mental skills you prefer? I think you kind of just went through them, but if you can add to that, or if there's anything that you missed, feel free.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the plan is amazing. Big into visualization, like, you know, just kind of picturing yourself having that really perfect flow moment, in doing that when you're not running at all, and like laying down on the couch and picturing yourself at the start and what those nerves might feel like, and then going through how you're going to calm yourself, and just kind of putting yourself in all the different scenarios on race day and planning them going correctly, and visualizing them going in the way you want them to go. So when you're in the moment, you make the decisions that kind of gear you towards those things happening, instead of, again, getting flustered and being like, well, it would be easier to slow down right now. You've already kind of mapped it out a million times. Like, oh yeah, when it gets difficult, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to focus on keeping my shoulders down and not getting tense in my jaw and relaxing my hands. And you have like checklists again of things to do. And you know exactly what they look like as well. So the visual component kind of goes a long way.
That's a great answer. I try to always just look up, because I end up looking at my feet.
That's a good one too. Seems optimal.
Yeah. Has nutrition ever been a struggle for Des?
Nutrition's a really broad topic. I mean, I don't spend a ton of time on being like, what's the best diet? What should I be having? You know, I just kind of try and put healthy stuff in the fridge. And then when you go to the fridge, you grab healthy stuff. So it's, you know, pretty simple that way. In terms of race day nutrition, I had a really hard time in my second marathon, just keeping fluids in and down. And I was just like a lot of like nerves and excitement. It was the Olympic trials was my second marathon, 2008. And so I was like, I can make this team. This is going to be my day. I was so ready. And then I just like stopped taking fluids because they would come back out. Probably just was too worked up. And so practicing that, it was like immediately after, I bonked at 22, and I was like, that nutrition's probably important. And so getting ready for the next one, it was like, you're going to train your gut and really make sure when you're running hard, you can get fluids down. And even if you're nervous or anxious or, you know, uncomfortable, your gut's going to be prepared to handle it. And so it was really forcing that practice, and just, you know, we can teach ourselves how to keep fluids down, and you run fast with that in there if we practice it in training and long runs. So that was a nutrition struggle.
Do you have a particular nutrition or something, or a product that you like for running the marathon, or do you just experiment?
I use Power Bar, and I've been with them since 2012, I think. And they came back with, because it kind of got sold off, and they're back with gels in their fluids, like the electrolyte drink and the recovery stuff. They do a hydro gel now it's with a mojito, and it has caffeine in it. It's like so good, like super easy to drink, because it's a little bit larger package, but it's like pre-mixed with water. So those are great. And then I use their electrolyte mixed drink on the course. And, you know, once I got used to that, it was like, this is the perfect match. And when they kind of went away for a little bit, I experimented with some other stuff and never quite sat right. So I'm glad that they're back and pushing that back out.
Is the hydrogel, is that similar to like a Martin? Like, is that?
Yeah, it's a little more like, it's a little thinner.
Okay.
So like the Martin's kind of jelly, sort of like, so it's like, you don't even need water afterwards. You can just sort of sip it out of there.
Oh, wow.
And then if you want like just to rinse the flavor out later.
Who wants to get rid of mojito though?
Well, yeah, no, exactly. It's kind of nice. You're out at mile like 25 or 25K and you're like, I think I need a mojito. Let's go.
All right. So. Robbie is our editor extraordinaire, and he has a question for you. Mm-hmm. Brand new or Taking Back Sunday?
I saw that on the ad. It had a little, was it brand new? I would go brand new.
All right, there you go, Robbie.
It's of a Taking Back Sunday singer. I can't remember his name.
He's going to be heartbroken now.
Yeah.
Let's see here. All right. A lot of bourbon questions, so we might as well ask one.
We going there?
Yeah, I guess so. I've been doing more tequila and Soltal and mezcal lately. I just watched that show. There was a Netflix one about bourbon. Oh, I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, they take you to Kentucky. They talked about the history of bourbon and why all bourbons are whiskey, but not all whiskeys are bourbon. You know, the whole thing. Sure. It was pretty decent. Like I wanted to drink bourbon after that.
Right.
In watching it. Neat is what it's called.
Okay. Yeah.
Have you seen it?
I've seen that I haven't watched it, but I've seen it on the ads.
It was entertaining. I liked it.
Yeah.
But anyway, what's your Kentucky bourbon, whiskey sour or old fashioned?
My go-to Kentucky bourbon's probably Woodford, and it's just like so consistent and reliable, and it's such a classic. But if I were going, was it whiskey sour or old fashioned?
Yeah.
Old fashioned every day. Yeah.
Okay. And you like in the documentary, the one thing I learned that was neat about, like you can get a little snobby about certain alcohols. Yeah. And bourbon though, they're like you do it to taste. You want to splash a little water in it, that's okay. You want to put it in a mixed drink, that's okay. You want to have it neat, that's okay too. Do you have any preference or say in that kind of stuff?
It really depends on like what the glass is. Like a Booker's is just like a freaking cup of fire. So it's not enjoyable for me to be like, I'm just going to sip on this neat. Like I would rather put some water in there just to get a little more flavorful and have it be something I can kind of sip on and enjoy versus like a pile of heat. So it really depends on what kind of glass you're having. But we always kind of, Josh and I, my agent, joke around about the whiskey is like, it's like coffee, you know, you can start with a foo-foo drink and have like a latte or whatever. And that's like a cocktail. If you want, you know, an Americano, because you don't want just the espresso a little too rich, you get like bourbon and soda water. Great. Just kind of cut it with a little bit of water, very nice drink. And then if you just want a straight espresso, then you go neat, you know. So there's like layers to it, but they're all great drinks, you know. There's no wrong.
That's an interesting take on it, making it an analogy with a coffee. I like that.
Yeah.
All right. Do you use any race mantras?
Yeah. I think people want me to say keep showing up, but that's not what I say. I say calm, 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 relax, relax, relax. And I do it in a very calm and relaxing voice and rhythm, because when things get tough, like our natural tendency is just like we tense up, right? And like our jaw sets and our arms come up and we're like, I'm gonna get through this rough patch. And like you're never running fast when that happens. And then you see your race pictures and you're like, I look like I'm crushing it, but you weren't. And that's your slowest mile. But if you relax and you kind of start from your head and you work down, it's like, okay, relax your jaw, get your shoulders down, get your arms down. You know, feel smooth, and you can't force fast. So I use that to remind myself to not try.
I like that.
Force through those moments. Yeah.
All right. That actually, you're nailing the segues here. And I don't think she means relaxing. This from Allie, Kimmy. I don't think she means relaxing while you're running. I think she means relaxing afterwards. Like, how do you relax and calm down after an event or a hard workout?
Yeah.
Or a regular day.
Yeah, come home and have like some good coffee. I think making a nice pour over is a very soothing ritual. And then you have your nice warm cups, like an adult security blanket, right? And you take that and you sit down on the couch with a good book. And that to me is so relaxing. And yeah, so that's kind of my go-to.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So a little coffee. I was expecting, smoke some weed and drink some whiskey, but that works.
Maybe when I retire.
Yeah. Well, that will go in here. This is a good question. How do you stay motivated?
Yeah, that's the big question right now, right? First of all, I think you recognize that it's going to ebb and flow, and there's when you're not, you can't force it either. You just have to try and get started and see what happens, and have some grace when it, doesn't happen. Like, okay, every now and then I can not be perfect. That's okay too. But for me, it's the thing that's always been the motivator for me in the sport is to find out how good I can be. The window's kind of closing in on that right now because you can only get better for so long. And I'm chipping away at the last final things, like maybe there's a little more and kind of hoping that there is a little bit more. And so the only way we can get those answers is if we do that work, and it's the grind that is kind of not that fun at times and is not that great to watch, but like you have to do those days to get those moments that tell you how good you are. And, it's how you answer those questions. And I don't want to look back and be like, man, maybe if I had done XYZ or not taken that month off because I was just being lazy, like that could have made or break, the moment of finding out how good I can be. Maybe there was more. So you don't want to answer, like, you don't want to be left with what if, and you just solve that by going and doing.
Well, that's interesting because you're talking about it from like a professional stance and the goals and what you can achieve as far as levels go in the sport. But there's got to be a certain love for running in its own, like, beauty of that and time on your feet, just relaxing and going for a run. You still have that, like, you enjoy going for runs, right?
Yeah. I mean, what's funny though is for so long that wasn't part of the equation. Like I hated easy runs. I was like, let's do another workout. Like, let's race. Like, I want results. Like, I want to see numbers that are exciting and like run fast and like feel alive. And it was for way longer than I should admit, but it was like from when I started as a kid, really until I got my big injury in 2012. And, I broke my femur, and you take a big chunk of time off, and, it was after a game. So you have to really recommit for 4 more years. Like, am I going to sign up to try to do this again? It's 4 more years. And at that point, it was like you had to be excited about running 10 minutes a day and 20 minutes a day. And it was such a long outlook and such a, like, before you can get to results, you're going to have to do this for a good stretch of time. And just, if you don't love it, just pack it up and do something else. And so that's like when I really was like, okay, I need to appreciate getting out the door and working up a sweat and like losing a couple pounds. Like, that's cool. So it's like those little things, and it brought me back to like, well, made me really just appreciate that. And then I've always carried with that with me going forward.
Yeah. Sometimes I think it's a blessing that I'm not super fast because I don't have the pressures I put on myself. And I can't, I don't have to worry about sponsors or anything like that. It's just, if I like running, I love running, and I don't have to worry about it, meaning having to, shave seconds off of things. So there's some advantage to being an amateur. But let's see here. This is an interesting one we'll go with since we talked about shoes. Do you think that the carbon fiber plated shoes have been positive for the sport?
Good question. I mean, I think they're it's certainly interesting, and it's going to change, you know, what we can do across 26.2 miles and other distances. So from that perspective, it's great. Like, we're getting interest on the sport, we're raising the bar. I think there's like an education factor that kind of needs to happen, and we're gonna lose the ability to compare across generations, but like that's kind of always evolving anyhow. You know, we go from no shoes to shoes, and getting fluids on the course, that changes things. So yeah, I mean, it's it's another natural step forward. I just think it went from like, usually the graph goes like that, and then it's just like a massive spike. So there's going to be kind of maybe an education component to that, but you know, we'll recalibrate and then keep moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's interesting. You look at Roger Bannister running in leather shoes and you know, basically nails for the spikes on that track. But and moving forward, but you're right. I didn't think about it as far as a hitting a time period. What was it, 2018 or so, where it just kind of just shoots up. At the same time, like I have had, and you brought up the positive part, Eliud Kipchoge, and watching him on the Monza track, and then watching him in where were they? Were they in Sweden, or were they in? No, it wasn't Sweden.
Copenhagen.
Yeah, one of those, you know, that look like that. You know, over there. That was again, as a fan of the sport moment, that was something incredible. And like, were you geeking out on that when he was going for the sub 2?
Yeah, you have to tune in and watch. It's history, right? You're just like, this is, can he do it? And there's something to be said about the guy who can show up and get it done at like this level every single time. Like, that's special. I mean, most people have a bad day, or, you know, if you're like 30 seconds off, you know, that doesn't happen. You know, he was still really, really prepared. So if you take the clock down and you just watch the guy running super fast, you're just as in awe. But to have that number just shattered, I mean, you watch and you cheer, and it's pretty neat.
And when we talk about the plated shoes, that guy's a talented runner. With if he was in the, you know, the Streak 6 when the insoles came out in the back in Berlin, or he's wearing, you know, Vaporflies,
right?
It gives him a little edge, whether it's 4% or the next percent or whatever. You guys at your level can run well in a plated shoe, in a soccer cleat, in whatever they're going to throw on your feet. So while I think it's a great advancement overall, the athletes are still, I still feel like it's the athletes that are also getting better, not just the shoes.
Sure.
All right. You got time for some more, Des?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, here's a good one. For the young people in the house, any suggestions for a 13-year-old track and cross-country runner? From Carter.
Yeah, I think it's got to be fun. And if they love track and cross-country, go out and practice and race and enjoy it with your friends. You know, if it's other sports mixed in there as well, don't just pigeonhole yourself in one sport. Like, I'm a cross-country runner. Like, just be a young athlete and do them all. And then as you get older, you can kind of dial it in. So I played soccer, softball, got into track later, eventually added cross-country, did all that stuff growing up. So if you can do that as long as you can, keep going laterally. That's always good. Like, we started running for a really long time, and all we can do is go straight forward. So yeah, don't get locked into anything too soon, but have fun with it. It should always be fun.
Yeah.
A little cliche, but fun.
No, it's the truth though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not having fun, again, what are you doing?
Right.
All right, let's see here. I'm trying to find a good one.
Yeah.
Don't be disappointed if it's lame. There's some ones I have to pass through here. All right, here's a good one. Everybody needs this. Injury prevention exercises. And by the way, I saw you with the Lolo Jones video.
Yeah.
I mean, is she 7 feet tall? How tall is she?
That's actually really funny. I didn't think she was super tall, but I'm sure relative to me, you're like,
okay.
I'm just pretty small.
Yeah, pretty good up. 32 millimeters. What was your jumping height?
I don't know, but I'm like, I'm never playing basketball. And
I
funny story, I
mean,
did that about 7 days after the New York City Marathon. I'm like, oh, this is going to be a disaster.
oh,
Everyone's
wow.
going to go. It was also filmed in Vegas, so it was like,
Okay.
eh.
Well, she wasn't just taller than you. She was taller than the gentleman that was running the test on you too.
Yeah.
So she looked like I was like, I don't know, that Lola Jones must be like 7 feet or something
I
like
wonder how
that.
tall she is. I mean, she clears those hurdles just fine.
Yeah. All right. So I digress. We go back. Injury prevention exercises. Like you have a warm up routine, a cool down routine.
I should be better about this. I think I do a general strength routine after workouts. So you do, warm up, workout, cool down, and then general strength, which is just general strength, push-ups, sit-ups, lunges, squats, things like that. And so it's just building a real strong core.
Do you do it with weights, or do you do just body weight?
All body weight. And so that's
awesome.
like the big strengthening thing that I kind of think also doubles up as injury prevention. For runners, tight hip flexors are always a problem. So make sure those are stretched out pretty good all the time. And then strengthen the core. That's always the thing.
Yeah. It was funny. I'm going to name drop here a little bit. We got a chance to hang out with Joan Benoit and Samuelson, and we're sitting by the pool.
Nice.
And my wife, who's much more talented runner than I am, they were talking back and forth. And Joni asked her, she said, do you do any CrossFit? Like, do you do any cross training? And Joni was like, no, I just run. And my wife loved it because she doesn't want to do any cross training. So she's like, perfect. If Joni doesn't need cross training, I don't need it.
It's crazy because if you watch her run, she just looks like so stiff, and you're like, man, she could like use some things worked out. But then you see how fast she's running, you're like, nope, don't touch her, she's fine.
She kind of sandbagged me. We were running a half marathon, and the day before we did a shakeout run, she told me I was making her run too fast. Mm-hmm. And then we're gonna run, and I had very modest goals for the half, and so she's like, well, okay, that sounds good. Let's do that together. So we started off together, and I'm like, Jonah, you're not following my plan. I'm supposed to be going slower in this. She's like, oh, we're going that fast. Doesn't feel that fast. And next thing I know, she just took off.
Gone.
Like, just gone. I'm like, oh, it's nice runaway. And we're talking like 3/4 of a mile. So it was like right out the jump. She
That's classic Joni.
Left me in the dust.
Yeah. That sounds
and this is like a year or two ago. Like, we're not talking, she's still super fast. So
she does that every year in Boston. It's like, I don't even know if I can run. Training was horrible. My knees hurt. Like, I think I'm gonna start. I'm just gonna hang out at the finish line. And then she'll be on the bus in the morning, and then you'll get in, and they'll be like, oh, Joni, a new world record for her age group. And you're like, oh, I'll just talk. Never believe her.
All right. I'll remember that. Now, Instagram cuts us off after an hour, so I'm going to wrap this up. And there's still questions, and there's still questions coming in, but I'm sure you'll have other chances to talk to Des and ask her questions on these live programs. We're going to put this one up on YouTube so it can be watched over and over again, probably by me mostly. But it'll be up there. It's obviously going to be on our Instagram stories, and you'll be able to watch it on the Instagram, what is it, Instagram TV they call it? I don't even know what it's called.
That's what it is. There's too many spots now.
Yeah, it's all over the place. But it was a real pleasure and an honor, and I really appreciate you taking some time out and talking with us. It means a lot to us.
Yeah, super fun. Thanks for having me.
Great when I say us, it's the royal us. It's like Robbie and all these people too, but Robbie, Megan, Jared, our whole team, Taylor, you go down the line, Dave Ames, Adrian, who's on here. Everybody is a big fan, so this was a big deal for us, and we appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Super fun.
All right. Awesome. We look forward to seeing what you do next, and hopefully when racing opens back up. And we'll be in Boston in September if it happens. So I'll probably run into you, and I'll be like, hey, I'm that guy that you talk to on Instagram. You'd be like, hey, what's up? I talk to a lot of people. But
no, look forward. I hope we cross paths. That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be great. Well, thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon.
You got it. Take care, guys.